Hi everyone. Today's the next day. I went in for an urgent ultrasound to see if the bleeding and cramping that I've been experiencing was indeed a miscarriage, and it's not. So, little Bean is measuring 6 weeks, 4 days, which is right on track because I'm 6'5". I'm so relieved. I don't even know how to feel right now. Yeah. I have to come back in 2 weeks because the amniotic sac is within normal range but on the smaller side of the range, so they just want to keep an eye on it, make sure that there's enough room in there for baby. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. I'll update you again at my next ultrasound. I guess today will tell. So it's not easy to start this. I guess you can tell by my tone this isn't a good update. So after I went in for my 6-week scan, after I started bleeding, after seeing the heartbeat, everything looked fine except for a small subchorionic hemorrhage. I was bleeding off and on for 2 weeks until my next appointment at 8 weeks, 4 days. I'd bleed about every other day. I'd have like kind of normalish amount of blood, and then the next day it would just be dark, like remnants. Then I'd pick up again. Getting closer to the 8-week mark, it kind of stretched out to about 2 or 3 days in between when I would bleed, which I was thinking was a good sign that it was kind of resolving itself, until 2 days before my scan. I bled very heavily, not to the point where I needed to go to the hospital, but that I knew that something was different. I didn't contact my clinic because I figured I was going in 2 days from then and I would kind of know what was going on at that point. I was just expecting maybe that the subchorionic had gotten worse instead of better, or that, I don't know, maybe a second one had popped up, or maybe they found out that I maybe also had a polyp and that was also bleeding because I've had polyps in the past. But I went in for my 8-week ultrasound and they found that I had miscarried. So it was actually quite scary after. So during the ultrasound, they found that I still had a lot of tissue left inside, but there was no fetus anymore, so I had already passed that. But I had had an incomplete miscarriage. I decided to pass it naturally, but I was very much wanting to discuss the options of doing a D&C because I've always had issues with miscarriages when I've gotten further along. Anything over 6 weeks has taken me a long time to recover from. So I really wanted them to let me consider doing a D&C so that we could clean everything out and maybe I'd recover a little faster. So they had made the note for my doctor. But about 4 days later, that weekend, I woke up to really bad well, I went to bed the night before with extremely bad cramping. Couldn't really sleep. And then the next morning, the bleeding picked up a lot. We were supposed to go to a friend's house to help her do some small renovations. And before we left, I decided to change my pad. And so I did that. The toilet was dark red, like black almost, which I knew wasn't a good sign. But I changed my pad, put in a thicker one, stood up, walked to the living room to say, okay, I'm ready to go, and I felt a gush. So I ran back to the bathroom, same thing, basically went to the bathroom, the toilet was dark red, almost black, and my pad was full. So within 5 to 10 minutes of changing my pad, I had filled another pad. So I was like, okay, maybe it was just, it was a gush. Like, it will be fine. It happens sometimes. Changed my pad, went out again, same thing. So I went back to the bathroom and I just kind of stayed there for a longer period. And I could feel dripping, like I was constantly bleeding. So I wadded up a piece of toilet paper, held it there, and it soaked right away. I didn't know what to do at that point, so I messaged the clinic to let them know what was going on. Of course, it was a weekend, so it was not like they're going to get back to me right away, but they are staffed on the weekend, so I knew I was going to have to go to the hospital. I just, in that moment, you just want validation. I don't know. I just needed somebody to tell me that I wasn't stupid for going to the hospital. So while I was waiting, I didn't want to put another pad on, so I actually jumped in the shower. I passed a lot of clots. The shower was constantly running red. I don't know if this helped move things along a little bit, but it's probably way too much information, but I kept kind of squatting to kind of try to get everything to come out. And so I finally heard back from the clinic and they said, yes, go to the hospital right now. So I went. The hospital is about 30 minutes away from us. I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to make it. So I brought myself a towel to sit on, just in case if I bled through. Luckily, when I got there, had a little bit of a gush, but not as bad as before. Brought myself lots of pads. And then I got there, sat in the waiting room for maybe 5 minutes for triage. And I kind of told them what was happening and that I knew I was miscarrying, or that I had miscarried and it wasn't complete, but the bleeding was very scary. So she told me, unfortunately we don't have a room for you right now, but we'll try to get you one as soon as possible. We'll get your blood work started at least, and then we can get things moving. And so she got me to get up, and I told her, I'm like, I don't think it's going to be good. I'm probably going to have to run to the washroom to change my pad again, because whenever I stand up, it's not good. So sure enough, I stood up, and because I'd been sitting longer, even just from the car ride and then waiting, when I got up, it was quite a bit of a gush. So I had to run to the washroom, I had blood through my pants because it was such a bad one. So I go back to triage after, and I'm just ask her, do you have one of those absorbent pads or something that I can sit on, just because I kind of went through everything. And she's like, you know what, we're just gonna get you in. So they found a room for me. They have like it's an OB room, but they keep it for emergency people who maybe come in and they're pregnant and they're not quite ready to move on to delivery. And so even though I had miscarried and I was no longer pregnant, I still fall under the OB category. So they put me in that room. They were really good, really sweet, especially after telling them that I've been pregnant 7 times. This was my 7th miscarriage. I have no living children. They were very sympathetic and very much like, okay, we're going to take care of you. So once they got me in the room, they gave me some of those disposable mesh underwear because I'd bled through everything. And kind of just waited for them to come give me some Tylenol or something, because I had just finished off the last of my Tylenol before, a few hours before I had left the house, and I had none left. And so I just gone over the 4-hour mark from my last set of Tylenol, but I didn't have any. So they went and got me some Tylenol, started my blood work, started an IV, and they asked me if I wanted some morphine. Never had it before, but I decided, you know what, I was in a lot of pain still, so I said yes, I'll try some morphine. It took a while for the morphine to get prescription to come through. So I had actually gone up to get my ultrasound before they even brought me back for morphine. So when I went in for the ultrasound to make sure that everything had mostly cleared, they said there was very minimal left and that I'd probably pass it within the next few days. And that it looked like, at least for now, it was considered a complete miscarriage. So I'd passed what I'd had to. And it doesn't look like I needed an emergency D&C. My platelets looked good, so I didn't have to worry about needing a transfusion, which was good. But the amount of blood that I did lose was definitely a reason to come in, even though he said there was nothing they can do. He's like, there's nothing that they can do for me, basically. And I said, yeah, I know, I just, with the amount of blood that I lost, I was just really scared. And he's like, no, you did the right thing, you come in for that. Unfortunately, or fortunately enough, that your body's doing what it's supposed to, so you don't need any intervention. It just happened all at once. So that was 2 weeks ago now. I'm still bleeding. It's very minimal, but it's still there. It's gone down to about every other day. Same thing as the first week of me bleeding, when between 6 and 7 weeks. I'll bleed for a few hours one day, bright red, and then it will be kind of remnants for the next day or so. It's really annoying, but it's probably just because my HCG hasn't gone down completely, so I have a phone consult with my doctor in a few weeks, and I guess we'll discuss our next steps. Hopefully my HCG will have dropped down to 0 by then, so that we can really focus on moving forward. I do have 8 embryos left. 5 of those are genetically normal, and 3 of those are mosaics. So I'm not out of hope, even though this was the closest I'd gotten. 8 weeks, 2 days is the day I miscarried. It's the furthest I've gotten in a pregnancy, especially seeing as we saw the heartbeat at 6 weeks. My plan is to ask him to do new HSG to make sure that there are no polyps or anything in there, no scar tissue from this miscarriage, so that we can at least say that that everything's clear. That's kind of why I wanted a DNC, is because maybe there's a polyp and that the embryo partially implanted on a polyp, and that can cause issues. So I wanted a DNC because then they would have to basically clear everything out while they're in there. But I'm past that point now, unless my HCG refuses to drop to below 5. But it seems to be dropping pretty drastically each time, so so a new HSG. Also, I wanted to do an ERA. I'm hoping that we can do them on the same cycle, because the HSG happens early on enough in the cycle that it shouldn't make a difference. And then ERA, you prep your body as if you're doing a transfer, and then do biopsy of the lining to see when is the best receptivity for an embryo transfer. Because my HCG was pretty low when I found out I was pregnant. They didn't have any worries about it, but I did, because all my previous pregnancies, my number's always been really high to start off with. And when I took my pregnancy test, like, the line was very, very faint, and I've always had pretty strong positives. I mean, it starts out really faint, but I find out usually at about 90 PO, whereas this was almost 12. I think it was day 11 or something that I took the test, or 10 days post-transfer, which is basically 14 days DPO, or 15 days DPO. So it was really scary to see it so faint. Expected it to be much darker, and then I expected the number to be much higher. It did double after I asked them to redo the test, which was good, but I'm thinking maybe either it has to be something to do with more scar tissue or polyps, or maybe I just need more time. Maybe I need my transfer 12 to 24 hours later, or 48 hours later, or I don't know. really feel like this was a late implantation and that maybe something just didn't work out. I don't know what else to say. I really wish this could have been it.